Folks, welcome back to the channel. Doug with Stacking Investments here. We're going into episode 4 of lesson learned setting up over the years at the flea markets and how to maximize your sales and make the most money you can possibly make. And this is lessons that we learned over 40 to 45 plus years of setting up, many years in a row, some years off, getting back into it and all that. We started when we lived in Virginia. My parents took some stuff to a flea market outside of Richmond, and they did really good. And then we got into going to garage sales, buying stuff, and then going out to the flea market. And my parents got me into it to keep me occupied as a kid. They got me, when they set up, they got me a card table, and I had my own items. I would go to garage sales. I would spend the money that I made, buy items, and then when I went to the flea market, I had my own little table that anything I sold, that was my money, and it got me into buying and selling. We learned a lot from those days. My dad got transferred to the middle of Illinois, and so we took a year. It was a 1.5 year move, and the union voted against the rules that the company wanted to set up. So the company shut that trucking terminal down, and off to outside of Chicago we went because my dad got transferred to Chicago. While we were in Illinois, there was several markets we went to. I can't remember if it was Belvedere or Belleville or Belvedere, something like that. There was a big market. I remember it was a gravel lot in all the rows. We went to, it was the fairgrounds. I think it was once a month in the summertime in St. Charles, Illinois. That was back in the 80s. I was in high school, 80 to 85. We went to St. Charles. We went to Rockford. There was a mall there. They used the parking lot on the weekend. And let's see, there was one we went to, Villa Park. Wasn't the best kind of market, but at the time we'd go there, we'd sell at least $100 there. St. Charles was really good. We used to $400, $500, $600 there. Rockford was $200 to $300 in sales. Belleville or Belvedere or whatever that town, whatever that area was, whatever that market was, I can't remember. I remember being there selling and stuff, and I think a couple hundred every time we set up there. But there was one in particular where we learned lesson number 4, and that was a town called Yorkville. At Yorkville, it was a kind of a strip mall. It had an odd shape to it, and it had a courtyard, so you weren't able to like pull up like a strip mall. You parked in the parking lot, got out of your car, and the sidewalk around the courtyard area were all the entrances to all the different stores. It was covered, and every so often, or every like 8 or 10 feet, there was a support that came down to hold up the awning, and your spot was laid out between those awning support posts and everything. And it was on the weekend. Some of the stores were closed. There was a few of them that were open. I can't remember. I think that was Sunday, and I don't remember if it was once a month or twice a month or whatever, but we used to go to that all the time. And this is where we learned number 4 here on the list. And I actually figured this one out just because we kept setting up there. We had to park, and we had a old Pontiac Catalina. We'd have the back seat and the trunk loaded down and with stuff, and you had to have, if you were lucky, you had a little hand dolly, because you had to carry your tables up and set your tables up, and you had to go back to your vehicle, whether it be a car or truck, and get the boxes of your stuff and bring that around to your spot and everything. It was kind of aggravating because you couldn't bring your vehicle up in the courtyard area of that mall. And we had one spot, and what we would do is we had more stuff than you were able to put out in one spot. So lesson number 4 is don't pile your stuff on the tables. Get a second spot. You know, what you want to do is you want to spread your stuff out. When you pile it up, and this has to do with the subconscious and psychological aspects of the way people act. You can see this because there are people at the flea markets. You can observe this where they cheap out, they get one spot and they pile the stuff up. So if you want to look at something, you have to dig through it. And that's a big no-no. You lose sales, you won't do as good, and you'll have a few people rummage through it, but you will lose out because people will just walk by it because they don't want to take the time to dig through the big mountain of stuff you've piled up on your tables. What happened with how I figured this out, we'd go there and we would sell about $150 on average at this market. And remember, back in the 80s, 150 was doing pretty good. And we had our one spot. And we always had more stuff than we could put out. So we'd have boxes of stuff, like we'd sell a little bit, and we'd open up a box and we'd start pulling stuff out and filling the holes that were created by, we'd sell an item, well, you got a spot on the table, pull something out, fill the hole. That's also another key thing. If you have more stuff than you can put out, when you create a hole, you want to, if you don't have anything else to put out, you want to rearrange your stuff, and so you don't leave these big gaping holes in the table, on your tables. But what I figured out was I got talking to mom and dad. I'm like, look, we're going out there, we're doing $150. We can't put it all out. If we're selling $150 in one spot, surely if we had two spots, we would do twice as good, because if we're doing 150 in one spot, well, if we get another spot and fill that spot out, then we should do 150 in that spot and do 300 total. So they thought it was a good idea. We figured we'd try it. A spot became available that we could get reserved, so we'd have two side-by-side spots. We got that. We went out. We set up both spots. We spread our stuff out. We still couldn't get it all out in the two spots. And lo and behold, instead of, not only did we double up and do 300, we started averaging $350 to $400 every time we set up out there. So we learned that right off. We learned that at that market, Yorkville. When you pile your stuff up, you're only going to do a certain amount of money. You get a second spot. Now, there are limitations to that, and that's not always the case. As far as, you get two spots, you'll do twice as good. You get three spots, you do 3 times as good. No, there's limitations on that. That's not always the case. But the main part of the rule is don't pile your stuff up. If you've got more stuff than you can put out on the tables, and you've got it piled up so people can't see what you got, and that's key. You need to spread your stuff out so people can see it. People are lazy. They're not going to dig. Somebody like me who is looking for deals and getting stuff that I can flip and make money on, there's times I will dig through the people that set up like this, and I'll dig through and look and I get some pretty good deals. But the average buyer that comes out, they're just going to walk straight past it unless there's absolutely something that catches their eye that they can't live without. So if you've got more stuff and you're having to pile it up, get yourself a second spot. I'm going to show you the advantages of that, because we're going back to the chart I did about episode 3 about setting up in a straight line versus setting up in the U. I explained why you're cheaping out doing this and you're hurting yourself. This is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. And I showed set up in a straight line. But we're going to add to this, because what we're doing is we have more stuff than we can get out on the table. Yeah, I'll go with the big one here. Oh God, I put the lid on that tight. And we're going to, because we're running in a straight line, so we don't have as much table space where you do here. But I showed where this is a no-no, because people won't come in here, and you lose sales because of the way people act and the way they walk. And you can see this if you go to a flea market and just take 30 minutes and look, you'll see this happen. Just find somebody who's set up in one spot like this, or they're set up like this. There are exceptions, people that sell food, but then they still lose, because when there's a bunch of people in here, you lose customers because people aren't going to stop and wait. They're just going to keep going. But you get your first spot, and you're set up in a straight line, but you got stuff piled up, and you got more than you can fit in this. So you get your second spot. This is a good thing, because now you're able to put more stuff on the front line. You're able to spread it out so that it's not piled up and people can see what you have. And there you have what is called, all your stuff is on the front line. You've maximized the front line. Remember what I told you, the way people act when they're walking down the row. Most people prefer to walk in a straight line. There's some that may zigzag back and forth as things appeal to them, or they're scanning, and I'll do this. When I'm doing a quick scan to see if there's anything I can buy to make money on, I'm looking for stuff that I can obviously see, and maybe this vendor is one that I know. They set up and they never have anything that I'm ever interested in. It's the same old thing they set up, and they never have anything I'm interested in. So I may be walking along. I know they're always in this spot, but there's somebody new over here, so I'll zigzag this way to see what's going on. But I'm scanning, even though I might be on this side, I'm also looking over here. But that's because I'm conscious of what's going on, and I'm looking for stuff I can flip and make money on. But the average person, the average shopper that's coming into the flea market, they're walking in that straight line. Whichever way they're going, they're walking in a straight line. Or they may be walking in a straight line, and they happen to turn their head and see something over here, and they'll cut across to look at that. But if you have your stuff in a straight line, as those people are walking by, they have nothing better to do but to look at everything you got as they continue in that straight line. By not piling it up, you stand a chance of, yes, you're paying double spot rent, so you're paying for 2 spots, but guaranteed, if you and this guy next to you who's set up in this U, and you have 2 spots, and you have pretty much similar items, similar pricing, you will outsell this guy every time. You will outsell this vendor by doing this setup. You will do it every single time. Hands down, unless they decide to price cut and give their stuff away. This is the way you want to do this. Straight line. If you have more than you can fit on that straight line, do not pile it up. get your second spot, spread your stuff out. You don't have to leave gaps in between all your items. You can, get stuff pretty close, but you want to spread it out. You want to have the people walking and looking, potential customers. You want them, as they're walking by, to see everything on there. They don't want to look at a pile that they might have to potentially dig through, because they'll just keep walking. You want to put your stuff out. You want to put it out neatly, and you want to have it in a straight line. I'm telling you, all you have to do is go find a setup like this right here, stand over here for 10-15 minutes and just watch the people. They will walk straight by this, unless a particular item catches their eye. And if there's already a couple or 3 people in there, everybody else, whichever way they're walking, will just keep walking by. So keep that in mind. This is lesson number 4 on the lessons we learned over the past 45 years of setting up and selling at the flea market. And I hope you learned something. And I will see you in another video, and we will get into lesson number 5. Until then, y'all take it easy.